Hey everyone, welcome back. This hurts a woman the most when she doesn't value you. Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what happens when the person you care about doesn't see your value? What does ancient Stoic wisdom teach us about the one thing that truly affects someone who takes you for granted? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand a profound truth that could transform how you approach relationships forever. And if you're ready to discover how the greatest philosophers in history dealt with being undervalued, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because this journey into Stoic wisdom is going to change your perspective completely. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're diving deep into one of the most powerful aspects of Stoic philosophy: how to handle situations where you feel undervalued or unappreciated in relationships. Now, before we continue, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. This is about understanding human psychology through the lens of ancient wisdom. And more importantly, it's about developing your own inner strength and self-respect. The Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, lived through some of the most challenging times in human history. They understood something profound about human nature that we're going to explore today. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you were giving your all to someone who just didn't seem to appreciate it? Drop a comment below if you've experienced this, because you're definitely not alone. Chapter 1. The Stoic Foundation. Let's start with the foundation. The Stoics believed in something called the dichotomy of control. The idea that there are things within our control and things outside our control. And here's where it gets interesting when it comes to relationships. You cannot control how someone else values you. You cannot control their emotions, their choices, or their behavior. But you can control how you respond to being undervalued. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the greatest philosophers in history, taught us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Let me tell you about Sarah and Mike. Sarah was constantly trying to prove her worth to Mike, always available, always accommodating, always putting his needs first. But the more she tried to prove her value, the less he seemed to appreciate her. Sound familiar? Here's what Sarah didn't understand, and what the Stoics knew. When you constantly try to prove your worth to someone, you're actually communicating that you don't believe you have inherent value. And if you don't believe it, why should they? The Stoics taught that your value doesn't come from external validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." So what does this mean in practice? When someone doesn't value you, the Stoic response isn't to try harder to prove your worth. It's to focus on what you can control, your own actions, your own values, and your own self-respect. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Value. Now here's where ancient wisdom meets modern psychology. There's something called the scarcity principle. People tend to value things more when they're rare or hard to obtain. But there's a deeper psychological truth here that the Stoics understood long before modern psychology existed. When you're always available, always accommodating, always putting someone else's needs before your own, you're communicating something powerful, but not what you think you're communicating. You're not communicating that you care deeply. You're communicating that you don't have other valuable things competing for your time and attention. And here's the hard truth. People unconsciously associate your constant availability with a lack of value. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks the truth turns from the new to the eternal." The eternal truth is that respect and value must first come from within. Think about it this way. Imagine you're at a store, and there's a product on sale every day. It's always 50% off. What do you assume about that product? Probably that it's not worth the full price, right? But if there's a product that's rarely on sale, And when it is, it's only for a limited time. What do you assume? That it's high quality, that it's in demand, that it's worth the full price. The same psychology applies to relationships. When you're always available, always accommodating, you're essentially putting yourself on permanent sale, and people unconsciously devalue things that are always on sale. But here's where the Stoics add something crucial. This isn't about playing hard to get or being manipulative. It's about genuinely having a life of value, pursuits that matter to you, goals that drive you, principles that guide you. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world. Yet he wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." When you have genuine self-respect and inner strength, you naturally become less available for people who don't value you, not because you're playing games, but because you're investing your time and energy in things that align with your values. Chapter 3. The Paradox of Pursuit. Now we come to one of the most counterintuitive aspects of human psychology, something the Stoics understood deeply. The more you chase something, the more likely it is to run away from you. This isn't just about relationships. It's about everything in life. The Stoics called this preferred indifference, things that are naturally desirable, but shouldn't control our happiness or self-worth. Let me tell you about Cato the Younger, one of the most respected Stoics in Roman history. Cato was known for his unwavering principles. He never compromised his values for political gain, never begged for favor, never chased after people's approval. And because of this, he was incredibly respected, even by his enemies. Julius Caesar, who disagreed with Cato on almost everything, said, "I would rather have Cato as a friend than Caesar as an enemy." Why? Because Cato's value was evident in his actions, not in his words or his pursuit of others' approval. Here's what happens when you stop chasing someone who doesn't value you. You create space. And in that space, something interesting happens. The person begins to notice your absence. They begin to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, what's capturing your attention. But here's the crucial point. And this is where many people get it wrong. You're not withdrawing to make them chase you. You're withdrawing because you have self-respect. You're withdrawing because you're investing your time and energy in things that actually value you back. Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. When you stop explaining why you deserve respect and start embodying self-respect, people notice. When you stop arguing your value and start demonstrating it through your actions, the dynamic changes. But here's where many people go wrong. They withdraw as a strategy, as a way to manipulate the other person into valuing them. This doesn't work because it's not authentic. The Stoics taught that authenticity is everything. Your actions must align with your values, not your desired outcomes. The question isn't, how do I make them value me? The question is, how do I live in alignment with my own values, regardless of how others respond? Chapter 4. The Strength of Detachment. The Stoics had a concept called amor fati, love of fate. It means accepting and even embracing whatever happens to you, including being undervalued by someone you care about. But this isn't passive resignation. It's active acceptance that leads to inner strength. When you're not desperately attached to a particular outcome, you become more attractive, more interesting, more valuable. Let me share something personal. I once knew someone who was constantly worried about whether her partner appreciated her. She would analyze every text, every conversation, every gesture. She was so focused on getting validation that she lost sight of her own goals, her own interests, her own life. Then something happened. She started reading Stoic philosophy. She began to understand that her worth wasn't determined by someone else's opinion of her. She started focusing on her own growth, her own goals, her own happiness. And you know what happened? The dynamic in her relationship completely changed. Not because she was playing games, but because she had become genuinely more interesting, more confident, more valuable. This is what the Stoics called detachment, not emotional coldness, but freedom from desperate need. When you're not desperately needing someone's approval, you can interact with them from a place of strength rather than weakness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." So what does this look like in practice? It means you stop checking your phone every 5 minutes waiting for their text. It means you make plans and stick to them, even if they want to see you. It means you pursue your goals regardless of their support or lack thereof. This isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about having a life that's so full and meaningful that no single person can be the center of it. And paradoxically, this makes you more attractive, not less. Here's something fascinating. When you stop desperately seeking someone's approval, you often become a mirror for their own insecurities. If they're used to people chasing them, your self-respect might make them question their own worth. They might start wondering why you're not pursuing them like everyone else does. This is what hurts someone the most when they don't value you. Realizing that they might have lost someone who actually had value, someone who knew their worth and wasn't willing to accept less than they deserved. Chapter 5. The power of self-respect. Self-respect is not about thinking you're better than others. It's about knowing your worth and not accepting treatment that falls below that standard. The Stoics understood that self-respect is the foundation of all healthy relationships. Seneca wrote, "Respect yourself and others will respect you." But this isn't a guarantee, it's a principle. Some people might not respect you regardless of how you carry yourself. And that's okay, because their opinion doesn't define your worth. Here's how self-respect works in practice. You set boundaries and stick to them. You don't accept disrespectful behavior, even from people you care about. You don't compromise your values for someone else's approval. This doesn't mean you become rigid or inflexible. It means you have standards that are non-negotiable. And when someone consistently fails to meet those standards, you don't lower them, you distance yourself. Let's say someone consistently cancels plans with you at the last minute. A person without self-respect might say, "It's okay, I understand," and keep making themselves available. A person with self-respect might say, "I understand emergencies happen, but I need to be able to count on our plans. Let's talk when you have a clearer schedule." See the difference? Both responses show understanding, but only one shows self-respect. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. When you don't accept disrespectful behavior, you communicate that you're not someone who can be taken for granted. And this has a ripple effect on all your relationships. People who don't value you will often fade away. And that's a good thing. People who do value you will step up and treat you better. And new people will be attracted to your confidence and self-respect. The Stoics taught that we should focus on being the kind of person we would want to be around. If you want to be valued, become valuable. If you want respect, show respect, starting with yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In relationships, the best response to being undervalued is not to desperately seek validation, but to live with such integrity and self-respect that your value becomes undeniable. Chapter 6. The Transformation. Now, what actually happens when you start applying these Stoic principles? What happens when you stop chasing someone who doesn't value you and start focusing on your own growth and self-respect? First, there's often a period of discomfort. If you're used to constantly seeking approval, stepping back can feel scary. You might worry that the person will move on, find someone else, forget about you. This is normal, and it's where most people give up and go back to their old patterns. But if you push through this discomfort, something interesting happens. You start to remember who you are outside of that relationship. You start to reconnect with your own goals, your own interests, your own friends. You start to build a life that's fulfilling on its own. And here's where it gets really interesting. The person who was taking you for granted starts to notice the change. They might not consciously realize what's happening, but they sense something is different. You're not as available. You're not as eager for their attention. You seem content. This creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. They're used to you being available, eager, accommodating. But now you're different. You're still kind, still caring, but you're not desperate. And this makes them start to question their assumptions about you. Sometimes this leads to a realization on their part. They might start to see the value they were overlooking. They might start to appreciate what they had. they might start to pursue you the way you once pursued them. But here's the crucial point. By this time, you've changed. You've developed self-respect. You've built a fulfilling life. And you might realize that you deserve someone who values you from the beginning, not someone who only appreciates you after you've withdrawn. One of three things typically happens. Either the person steps up and starts treating you with the respect you deserve, or they fade away because they can't handle being with someone who has self-respect. Or you realize that you've outgrown the relationship entirely. All three outcomes are positive. In the first case, you get the respect you deserve. In the second case, you free yourself from a relationship that wasn't serving you. In the third case, you open yourself up to better relationships. The Stoics would say that all three outcomes are preferred indifference. They're naturally desirable, but they shouldn't control your happiness or self-worth. Your happiness comes from living according to your values, not from any particular outcome in a relationship. Chapter 7. Practical Applications. So, how do you actually apply this in your daily life? Let me give you some practical steps based on Stoic principles. First, take an honest look at your relationships. Are there people in your life who consistently take you for granted? Who only reach out when they need something? Who cancel plans, show up late, or treat you as an option rather than a priority? Second, start setting boundaries. This doesn't mean being rude or cold. It means having standards and sticking to them. If someone consistently treats you poorly, limit your availability to them. Third, start investing in yourself. Pursue your goals, develop your skills, build meaningful relationships with people who value you. Make your life so full and interesting that no single person can be the center of it. Fourth, practice emotional detachment. Care about people, but don't be desperate for their approval. Value their opinion, but don't let it define your self-worth. Remember, this isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about developing genuine self-respect and living according to your values. When you do this authentically, people notice. Some will step up and treat you better. Others will fade away. Both outcomes serve you. The ancient Stoics understood something profound. Your value doesn't come from external validation. It comes from your character, your actions, your integrity. When you truly understand this, you become unshakable. You become someone who can't be taken for granted because you simply won't accept it. If this video has given you something to think about, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on Stoic, philosophy, and personal growth. And most importantly, start applying these principles in your own life. Your future self will thank you. Remember, you can't control how others value you, but you can control how you value yourself. Make that your focus and watch how everything else falls into place. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore more ancient wisdom from modern life.